about how to add 100,000 or more, even millions, to your e-commerce store. And my name is Ruben, you know me as the guy behind Daily CMO, and today I have Liro from Maida. I hope that's how it's pronounced. And Maida is a digital experience optimization platform that really specializes in A/B testing and really testing the heck out of your websites, right? And I think a lot of people today do not test enough. They do not test, for whatever reasons, their e-commerce sites enough. They don't test anything enough, and they make decisions, even in the age of AI, still by best guessing, right? So like how are they putting up their checkout pages? What are they putting with the words they're using, the headlines, the images, the position of elements on the page? All that matters. So let me introduce you to Liro. She is I would say, the business person, the chief marketing in Maida. And what she does is she works with a lot of brands, especially e-commerce brands, among many of the verticals from SaaS platforms and all that. So she works with a lot of e-commerce brands around the world, and she has a lot of experience seeing what works for many e-commerce businesses, right? So what are some typical hacks? What are some typical strategies you can actually take to optimize and see growth immediately in conversions? So that's the whole goal of today's session. So let's not take too much time. I'm going to pass this over to Liro for you to do your own introduction. Tell everyone here who you are, what you do, what's your superpower, and we can get started with today's session. Let's go.
Okay. Yeah. So good morning, everyone. First of all, thanks Ruben and his team for having this webinar. My name is Liro, and today I'll be sharing with you some DXO digital experience optimization strategies that you can use to uplift your e-commerce store revenue growth, right? And before we end the section, we will have a 10 minutes Q&A section. So if you have any question during the sharing, I need your help to post it to the chat, and we will address your questions in the Q&A sections. All right. Okay, so before we dive right into the strategies and tactics that you are looking for in this webinar to unlock your revenue growth, I wanted to, and in fact, that will be shared at the end of the presentation. So I hope you can stay with me until the end. Before that, allow me to do a very quick introduction of myself, so you get to know a little bit about who am I actually to speak on this topic, so you can also decide whether my sharing today will be relevant to you, right? So as you all might already know from the introductions from Ruben earlier, I'm the co-founder of Maida, where we help global e-commerce clients improve their digital experience and therefore revenues. And apart from the experience of serving global e-commerce clients, I myself is also a local e-commerce brand owner. And I guess from this slide, you can tell I own a sporting equipment brand called Athletic Introvert. And I have store on Shopee, on TikTok, as well as I have my own online store using Shopify. And it's not a huge brand, and honestly, I do not achieve huge success for this brand. But it's still operating and receiving orders once in a while. It's just a side project out of my personal hobby. But I do think that this experience helps me to put myself into your shoes when sharing all those global DXO strategies of our global clients today, right? Okay, so since today we are going to talk about revenue growth, right? Do you know what is the most promising growth channels for today, e-commerce? So some of you might say that could it be TikTok Live, or some of you still feel that running ads on Meta are generally still effective today, or having presence on marketplaces like Shopee, Lazada are a good way to improve your revenue. If all these are your answer, right, you are absolutely correct. All these are indeed very good acquisition channels that bring traffic to your brand, to your product, to help your potential customer discover your brand. But whether these channels are good for revenue growth is a different topic, because when we talk about growth, right, the growth is actually on a broader level where it not only includes acquisitions, but it also includes, it actually includes the entire customer journey. Like for example, upselling, cross-selling, retentions, after sale, or even your ambassador programs. And all these campaigns can indeed contribute to your revenue growth beside acquisition. So the answer to that question earlier, right? The most promising growth channel for e-commerce is actually your own online store. And I wanted to do a very quick clarifications, right? If you are e-commerce brands just starting out, right, you need to focus on acquisition rather than the growth at the border level. Like for example, for my own case, right, when I started my own brand, in the early days, I only have my social media accounts and people can just DM me to orders. And then from there, I started to have a store on marketplaces like Shopee. And then finally, I have my own store. I have my own online store on Shopify. So that's my journey of my own e-commerce brands, right? So like, to be honest, if you are just starting out, prioritize acquisitions. But if you are e-commerce brands where you have like reached certain milestone and you have like stable money traffic coming to your brand, coming to your online store, then the best channel to invest in for revenue growth is actually your own online store. And I've explained now why online store, right? Why not social commerce like or marketplaces like Shopee, Lazada? Why should I invest in my own online store to drive growth, right? Why not I just put money into running more ads on social media or running ads on Shopee? And all these channels also like provide us with the ability, like how do I say that? Like just now I mentioned that the growth increase retentions, right? Like you can also say that I can send voucher to my existing customer to encourage repeat purchase on the Shopee chat or on social media chat, right? Why should I focus on my own online store for retentions and for ambassador or this kind of campaign? And the main reason is that all these channels that we mentioned earlier, this platform are actually not your assets. And what this means is we are actually not in control of our user experience on marketplaces, on Shopee Lazada, or even on social media like TikTok, Instagram, right? And like for example, if any updates, any regulations launched by Shopee, launched by Lazada, all these marketplaces, we actually have to follow. And I think recently all these marketplaces, they adjusted their commission rate, right? And I also remember that there was once, right, I accidentally opt in for some cashback or free shipping campaign launched by Shopee. And I didn't know that until the end of the month when I look at my statement, and I only noticed that I actually joined this campaign which which affect my profit margin. So all these marketplaces, they are pushing for all these campaigns that reduce your margins. And but I'm not saying that you shouldn't have marketing campaigns on all these marketplaces. I think they are still very effective and useful for acquisitions. But for like beyond acquisitions, maybe we need to consider more whether it's the best channel, right? So that is one. We actually have to follow the rules of all these marketplaces. That is the game of the marketplace. And secondly, on all these marketplaces and social media, right? We actually cannot have easy access to our customer data. Like for example, Shopee, they limit your access to mobile phone data of your customer. I mean, you can access that for shipping purpose, for airway bill purpose, but you cannot easily access all this data for analysis. And yeah, so you don't have access to customer data, and you also do not have access to user interaction data. So user interaction data means that For example, you can on Shopify, you can know that this user debut product A, and then debut product B, and then debut another product C. So you actually know that what kind of what bundle of the products that your user are interested in. And all this user interaction data is very useful because like for if you want to understand your customer preference, right? Like for sure you can launch survey, you can launch polls to ask about what your customer prefer. But do you agree that sometimes what your customer says are not equivalent to what they will do? So what kind of data is more accurate than the user behavior data itself? So user interaction data is like really important and this I think all this data is actually the beauty of the beauty in this digital space where you can actually use this data to understand your customer preference. And lastly, on all these platform marketplaces, social media, you just don't have the ability to come up with a personalized product pitch for individual user experience. So with all these, given all these limitations, your online store actually has the greatest control and potential to actually grow your revenue. And you might also be wondering, right? Why should I compete on experience? Why digital experience? Why user experience is so important in e-commerce or in the digital space? And for that reason, I wanted to pull in some example from the physical world so it can help you to relate why experience is very important in e-commerce, right? Okay, so in the physical world, like we can already see that we have already shifted from just selling product to having branding to having designer brand, right? And the reason is that as the market becomes very competitive, we actually need a brand to differentiate ourselves, right? So this is simple to understand. I guess for everyone here, this is easy to understand, right? And then people are actually willing to pay more. Like for example, the price of the cook is actually more expensive if you get it from a bar, if you enjoy it from a bar, and versus that you are paying the cook from a grocery store. And the reason is that in the bar you can enjoy the ambience, the context is different, the experience is different, and the setting is different, and people actually pay for all this value add experience, right? So same goes to your online store, right? For example, you have a brand story, and you have ESG or CSR initiatives to contribute to the community. And with all these informations, your online store can actually find ways to present your brand story and all these ESG or CSR initiative on your online store to actually influence your user perceived value and to create that context, that setting, that experience to make your customer less price sensitive. And people are actually more than happy to support brands, to support businesses that align with their values, and and to actually contribute to the community that they care about. So for that reason, you create that context to make them less price sensitive, and you can actually build your client relationship and loyalty right at the moment when they discover your brand. So that's why online store has so much potential to drive your revenue growth compared to other acquisition channels. Yeah, so just to summarize your online store, with your own online store, you have first-party data. First-party data actually refers to your user behavior data or any data that you collected from your customers. And with all this data, you can actually do like a lot of segmentation and personalizations experience to create a better experience. And with your own online store, you can like bring out your brand story to help influence your user perceived value and thus they are less price sensitive, they are more willing to buy more from you to support your business. And that translate into like perhaps increased average order value. And lastly, branding. For branding wise, you can actually retain your customers better and actually build your brand loyalty in the beginning, in the early stage of your customer journey. Okay, so that is why the reason in the digital world now, like back then, the traffic is affordable, and then we can focus on getting more traffic with a hope that it will translate into purchases. It will work back then because the digital space wasn't that competitive previously, but now as the digital space becomes more and more competitive, that's why we need to compete on experience to to improve the revenue growth. Yeah, so if you want to bring a revenue to the next level, the new way is really the digital experience optimizations. And there are many different ways to drive revenue growth with the same traffic volume that you have now through DXO strategies. And when we talk about the DXO strategies, right, here are some DXO pillars that you can start for your online store, right? So these pillars are actually comes in sequential orders. The orders here is based on how easy you can implement them, but it doesn't mean that if the implementation is easy, the impact will be the impact will be small. That is not necessary, because sometimes it can be very easy to implement, like for example, just changing the copy, and then you will see a huge impact on your performance. So this order is actually based on how easy you can implement them, not based on the impact, right? So when you start your DXO campaigns, right, the first thing that you can optimize is always your performance optimizations. And when we say performance optimization, it actually refers to your site speed, your page loading times. And I know you might challenge me and you might not believe me, but the site speed is always the number one killer of conversions rate, because like you think about it, if you optimize your content, you optimize your user journey, but your visitor actually have difficulty loading your page and they just bounce from your page, then there's no point to proceed with like content personalization or your navigation optimization. So before you start your DXO campaign, the first thing that you need to make sure is that your site speed or page load time is good to start the DXO campaign. And when we talk about page load time and site speed, all this, right? If you still do not believe it's killing your conversions, right? Maybe here is a fun exercise for you to try out, right? You can ask a stranger maybe to locate a specific product on a marketplace, like for example on Shopee, as well as on your own online store, and then you can see like how long that they take to complete that purchase of that product. So you can compare the loading time as well as the user experience when it comes to like buying on marketplaces and buying from your own online store, right? This is a fun thing to play, but those are just like subjective measure of your site speed. They are actually metrics that they are actually objective metrics that to determine whether your site speed and page load time are good enough. So these metrics are like, for example, FCP, first contentful paint, LCP, largest contentful paint, and CLS, cumulative layout shift. All these metrics are actually part of Google Core Web Vitals, because your site speed not only kills your conversions, but they also impact your SEO rankings. So by improving just your site speed, you can improve your organic traffic, as well as you make sure that all the future DXO campaigns that you do is really can really deliver on the impact, right? Yeah, so that is about performance optimizations. Once you make sure that they are all good, then the next thing that you can do is content optimization, or we call it iterations campaign, where you optimize something that is already assets already present on your page. Like for example, for your online store, I'm sure you have a headline, you have a call to action copy, you have your product description, right? So all these are something that is already asset on your page, and then you can optimize them. Like for example, you can test different headline, test different value propositions, and I will share with you later some of the case study that where you see you make changes to a headline or value propositions, and you can actually see an impact in your performance. And then the next step the next step that you can do is user experience optimization. So here the implementation comes a little bit complicated, or a little bit like technical, where you are trying to optimize the navigations, the features, the user flow of your online store. And lastly, the end goal of DXO is always the personalizations, where you want to personalize the experience based on individual user, right? So for example, like from your content optimizations, from your content and user experience optimization, you will gain data and insights to inform your personalization campaign. Like for example, if you test your headline, you might notice that, okay, for example, headline A works better for traffic coming from Facebook, and then headline B works better for traffic coming from TikTok, because just an example, because like maybe audience from Facebook, they are a little bit elder, and then audience from TikTok, they might be a little bit younger, and then you can actually see that when you talk to the elder audience, you need to speak another language, and when you talk to the younger audience, you need to speak another language, right? So from all this data and insight, you can actually finally launch personalization campaign to create different copy, different experience tailored to the specific segment based on their attributes and based on their user profile. Yeah, so that is the basically the sequential orders that you can do with your DXO pillars, DXO campaign. Yeah. And then right, it's always easier said than done, right? And we are still seeing that there are many online stores that still feel at DXO campaigns, right? Like for example, you might have this experience before, like I'm actually making my online store better. I follow these best practices. I follow these expert opinions too, and then I just I make the changes on my online store, but I'm not seeing any difference in the conversions, in the revenue. So now I already lose faith, lose confidence in all these like store optimization things. Yeah. So why many stores they are still feeling at DXO is because it's because many of the DXO campaign, they are not based on the foundation of experimentations. Like for example, here you can see that in order to make your DXO campaign successful, you actually need a systematic and scientific way to validate the changes that you make to your online store, whether they really have an impact to your performance and to your metrics. Like for example, all the best practices, all the expert opinion, including what I'm sharing with you today, are just opinions and sharing, and they might not work for your business, they might not work for your market, they might not work for your audience. So you actually have to validate all these changes to ensure they really have an impact to your store. Like for example, here also, right? Like for example, I mentioned earlier, you can definitely launch survey tools to get your customer insights, but sometimes what they say might not be what they do, right? So the experimentation is really a technique for you to validate the changes that you make to your online store. And if you are still think that your gut feeling are the most accurate, now here I have a challenge for you. So from this design, right, can you tell actually which design perform better in terms of performance? Like for example, the design A, you have the main call to actions buy now comes after, and then the design B with the main call to actions button, they come first. So can you you just keep your answer within yourself. So to see if your gut feeling is really that accurate, right? So here is the story of this case study, right? So the story is that the original design is actually design A, where the buy now main call to actions buttons is placed after the secondary call to actions button. And then there's one designer they saw this original design and say that, oh, this is actually a bug. The main call to actions button should be placed first, should always be placed first. So this designer go ahead and change the design to put the buy now main call to actions button at the top. But fortunately, when they make this change, right, they actually launch an A/B test to see if there's any difference in the performance, right? But then the result turns out to be the original design is actually much better, where we place the main call to actions button after. And then this actually depends on the context, right? Like it depends on your or whether your product is an impulse fit for impulse buying, or whether they need more information before buying, right? So the logical thinking of placing main call to actions button first might not work for your business and might not work for your product. And so imagine that when you go ahead and implement all the changes that you think logical, then you think that they are all best practices, sometimes they might just not work for your businesses, and they might actually have a negative impact to your performance, but you actually didn't realize that because you didn't run A/B tests. You are not running any experimentations to actually see the impact. Right. So here's another example where you can see that with the design A, they have this add to wish list feature. And then with the design B, they actually remove the wish list features. And the result of this test is that by removing the wish list feature, they actually saw around 5% increase in revenue per visitor. Yeah, so you can see that there are still many online stores that are having this wish list or add to favorites features. But then sometimes these best practices are just might not work for your online store. Yeah. So some of you may say that, okay, I know experimentation is important, A/B testing is important, but then experimentation needs huge traffic. I don't have that enough traffic to validate all these ideas, and it just takes a lot of time and making all the process very slow, right? So actually, if you understand probability and statistic a little bit, I know that this might scare away a lot of people, but for information, I'm not a math person. I hate math. I hate statistics as well. But if you can understand probability and statistic to a level that is just enough for making data-driven decisions, I think that is still worth the investment to learn the basic, right? So if you know the basic of statistic, you actually can play around with the experimentation. So you actually don't need that much of a traffic to run experimentation. Like for example, generally speaking, if you're on like the least minimum for A/B testing, the least minimum, I would say that like if you have 5,000 traffic, 5,000 unique visitors coming to your store every month, then you can run really simple A/B tests. But then, since traffic is quite small, 5,000, you will need a longer durations to get a conclusive result. So if your online store has like around 20,000 to 50,000 online traffic, then I think you are good, and you can really see value in running experimentations, and like 20,000 or 50,000, you don't really need that much of time to get conclusive result. Because when we talks about A/B testing, we talks about statistic, right? If you know that there is this confidence level, if you don't need that much of confidence level, like for example, in pharmacy, in healthcare, you really need that much of confidence level to ensure that the medicine that you introduce will not cause any harm to people, right? But in business, we rarely make decision based on 100% confidence or based on 95% confidence. So if you can lower your confidence level, like for example, you are good with a decision with 70% or 80% confidence level, then you actually don't need that much of traffic, don't need that much of sample size to actually get a conclusive result that can support your decision, right? So I guess it's a good topic, a good how do I say that? Learning some basic of statistics, even for person, even for myself, that someone that who doesn't like me is still worth the investment. Okay, so with experimentation, right, you can actually lose small and win big in the long run. Lose small means that, like for example, the story that I shared earlier, where you are implementing changes to your store. If it doesn't perform better, you can immediately stop, and you can save your company from wasting additional resources or wasting additional time for that design that is not working. Or imagine that you didn't run tests and go ahead and implement the test, and then they are actually killing your future conversions and future revenue. So with experimentation, you can if it doesn't work, then you get the data, you get the insight, you can stop immediately. Win big means that you to be honest, you rarely win really big from one single campaign, right? So win big means that for every experimentation that you run, your improvement are actually compounding and increasing, because the winning campaign will inform your next campaign and will inform your future campaign. So your improvement is actually compounding from the previous campaign. So in the long run, you can actually see the improvement that is slowly bringing you to achieve your revenue growth. So that is actually the power of experimentation. All right, so here is a case study of our clients where you can see that they are just making changes to the headline, and they see an improvement of around 31% in their conversions rate. And like making changes to headline, like I think maximum it takes like 10 minutes for max. Yeah, so all this kind of DXO are actually content optimization, where it's just very easy to implement, but the impact to your performance could be huge. And here's another example where they change their value propositions. Like you can see that the original design is they highlight this personalized customer care, and then the new design they actually mention about their ESG initiative or CSR initiative, where they actually with your orders and contributions, they actually contribute to all this sustainability campaign. And finally, here is another example of they are testing different call to actions copy on the add to cart page, right? And then you can see that with different copies, the impact in revenue per visitors is actually different. Yeah. So here are some example of case study where they use experimentations to support their DXO campaign, right? So I guess that is pretty much the presentations. I hope you find this sharing helpful, right? So are we open now? Open the questions to the floor.
All right, thank you so much, Eero. So I'm going to come in and ask you some questions, right? And things that I saw within what you presented. So I've written them down. Okay, so if you can, I know it's a bit technical, but where can we go to read about more on FCP, LCP, CLS? Where can we go and read more about that? And what is the fine difference between those three things? Would you be able to explain that in a quick manner?
Okay. So I think the Google, they do release some official documentation to explain what this FCP, LCP, CLS metric means. The FCP is refers to first contentful pin. It's actually it measures the time, the durations that it takes to show your first elements of your page. And then the largest contentful pin is actually about the durations that it takes to load the largest elements on your page. And then the cumulative layout sweep refers to the whether your website has any element, the position changes. Like for example, sometimes you might have this experience where the page has a top bar mentioning free shipping and all that. But when the page loads, right, the top bar doesn't show up. But then after the page fully loads, then the bar show up. And then when the bar shows up, right, it actually push the following content, the following elements a little bit further down. So that is where your elements actually is moving. And then Google actually measure all this. So measure all this to determine whether your website offers a good user experience. So if all these metrics are not good, Google realize that the metrics on all your website are not met, are not up to the standard. Then they actually won't rank you on their search result. Yeah.
All right. So I think there are two effects of this. One is you won't get ranked on the search engines because obviously Google wants to show sites that are better in experience to their users
Yes.
and not risk
Correct.
their reputation as Google, right? That's number one. And number two, I think it also affects your users if they land on your site, whether they came in through an ad, right? And they find it slow, they get annoyed with all those shifts on your site, then they get annoyed. So it's two things, right? One for the machines, which is Google, and one also for your real users. So FCP, LCP, and CLS, cumulative layout shift, right? Do you think there's one which is more important or they are equally all as important?
I am actually not too sure, but I think the CRS is more important because CRS is really about the user experience. Like for example, when sometimes your layout shifts, right, you actually cause your visitors to click on something that they are not intended, and then they will like need to go back to the page, and then all these are actually uh
Annoyance.
yeah, affecting the user experience. So Google penalize this website.
And when it comes to FCP, right? Yeah, you mentioned the first element of the page. Typically, what affects that to show the first element? Is it because they have something large loading behind the site, or is it something else?
Uh, this actually goes a little bit too technical that my colleague Donna will be able to answer. But sometimes for some of the cases that I have seen a lot is that maybe their images are not optimized. Like sometimes some designer may insist with putting a better quality images to their website, but then the result like sometimes you really didn't know that the devices that your customer are actually using and the internet the connections that they have access to, and then when it takes a lot of time for the images to look like, I myself actually have this experience as well. I actually like recently I browsed a local e-commerce store. It's a sport wear store, and then like it actually takes like a few seconds for individual product images to show up. It's I'm actually on their category page, so they are there are many different products. Like it takes a few seconds, and then like the first product image show out, and then later the second, the third, and fourth, and I actually have to wait. Yeah, for the all the images to load, so that I get to know what does the product look like. So yeah, I think it is really important, the page loading, the first, yeah.
Especially if you run an e-commerce store that has a lot of products and a lot of photos,
Yes.
then the impact gets bigger and bigger because your site will get slower and slower, and that will affect the whole experience, right? Okay, I'm gonna move on to another one. You mentioned also a little bit about headlines, right? And I'm a fan of headlines. When I come up with like landing pages and sales pages, right? I will really focus a lot on the headlines because as marketers, we know the headline is like the 80% of the page. So 80% of your time should really be spent on the headline, because if it does not work, if it doesn't attract people, nobody will read the rest of your sales page, your e-commerce page, whatever page that is online. Now, when it comes to headlines, right? My question to you is, how many do you test at one time? Do you test like only two, A and B, or do you test like multivariate? And how long do you test usually?
Okay, so it actually depends on your website traffic. If like your website has a huge traffic, you actually can test different version, different headline at the same time. Like you can have your original, you have a headline, first headline, second headline, and third headline to test. So you can like do it at the same time if you have enough traffic to run this kind of test. But if your website has a relatively lower traffic, then it's best to like start with just one new headline, because you actually need the traffic to be split between to be split among all these variants, right? So if you are running multiple if you are testing multiple new headlines, then your traffic are actually shared between all these. And then if you take a longer time to reach conclusive result. Yeah. So depending on how much traffic that you need, and then maybe also about your confidence level, right? But for example, if you feel that messing out with headlines does not cost a lot to your business, and the level of implementation is like relatively easy, it's a relatively low risk kind of implementations, then you can lower down your confidence when setting out this kind of A/B testing. Like maybe I only need 70% confidence level. So with the lower confidence level, then you don't need that much of traffic to get conclusive results. So sometimes it's really understand a little bit about all these metrics and statistics, then you can like really come up with a campaign that fits your timeline, that fits your resources. Because if you don't have the resources to implement this kind of test, then that is something that you need to consider, right? So running experimentation, you really need to understand all these simple metrics, and there's this systematic and very structured way for you to do this if you know this well. Yeah.
Okay. I think experimentation is something that is like key for marketers, for business owners as well, because we do not know what we do not know, right? And
Yeah.
many people, what we do is, I think a lot of people, even myself included, right? When we do marketing for the first time, what we do is we actually copy what other people do, right? Assuming
Yeah.
that it works for them, so it might work for me. But you will find out that eventually, as you do more and more marketing, you'll find out that, hey, what works for person A will not work for you. And therefore, you would have to experiment in yourself and do a lot of tests. So even at Daily CMO, we test a lot of stuff, right? When we send emails, we test the time, we test the headlines, we test all sorts of things, and we try to see what works for people. And then we ask feedback. We ask people for like, responses, feedback, to really learn and, constantly improve and improve and improve again. So, Leroy, is there such a thing as too much testing? Have you ever encountered something like this? And what's your thoughts?
Too much testing.
Too much testing.
I don't know if there's an exact amount to determine too much testing, but maybe there are some times that if if something that you see, how do I say, too much testing? Uh, I I actually haven't encountered this question before, because like all the company, they have these limited resources, right? So when it comes to running all this experimentation, they are actually very careful to determine which will bring the impact. So usually the velocity of the test is actually there's always not enough testing instead of too much testing. So that's what I see mostly from all these company, because of lack of resources, it's actually not enough testing instead of too much testing. Yeah.
Makes sense. So better to test rather than not to have any test going on and being in the dark.
Yeah. Right.
Okay, let's end up with this one last one I'm gonna throw to you, right? You mentioned earlier in your presentation about people moving from selling bags to now selling designer bags. As in, I'm trying to understand what you mentioned there, where you're saying people are more interested in the experience of buying a luxury good compared to just buying a bag online, right? And I think there are two kinds of audiences out there. People who are in the lens of like, okay, I want something that's cheap, and they go for something that is cheap, right? And there are people who, okay, I have the means to buy something, right? And I want to feel valued. And I buy a luxury product. I like the experience because I deserve it, right? Is that what you mean by when you mentioned this on the slide? And how have you seen businesses translate the experience? Or like walking into an LV store to buy an LV bag, right? Now on a digital store, how have you seen companies doing that on their digital website?
Okay. So yeah, you are right. There are actually two paths for being a vendor, right? You can like selling product, and then you can earn from the skill, the quantity that you sell. And then there's another way that you really want to have a branding for your product in order to differentiate yourself from the market, to tell people that what we do is actually different from other products. And then you have a brand purpose. With this brand, what do you want to achieve, whether you want to help a specific audience, right? So that is actually the purpose of having a branding. So with a branding, the reason of mentioning branding and experience, that with all the branding, you actually can create a context and experience that people will be to actually influence your customer perceived value. Like there are true people, there are some people that are actually looking for deals, coupons, uh uh like promotions. And then yeah, because they do not associate with the brand, so they are just buying product for themselves, and they actually do not associate with themselves with any brands of the vendor. But imagine if I'm a consumer, and if I associate myself with a brand, like for example, if I really like this founder, I really like what this founder is doing, is supporting a certain community, and then I actually associate myself with this brand, then I'm more than willing to uh, spend more to support these kind of brands and businesses. So where it comes to your online store, because imagine on Shopee, there's no place for you to mention about what you do for your ESG, for your CXR, and there's no place for you to mention about what is your founder, who is your founder, what is the brand story, what does this brand do. So people on Shopee, they are actually looking just for products, discount, and then that is your customer segment. That is true. There is one customer segment that you need to get. But for your online store, maybe you can serve this segment where these consumers, they associate themselves with your brand, and then you yeah, so that is the first thing. And then the second thing is you also need to make them to complete the purchase as easier as possible on your online store, right? So that is also the experience, right? So that is where like in the physical store, the experience of a LV store, maybe they serve you drink, and then there's this personal sales, they give you personalized product recommendations, and then so all this, and then the maybe perhaps the interior design of the LV, they makes you so all the interior design looks so good, and then that makes you feel different, and then all this can actually translate to your online store as well. Like you can also come up with like personalized offer for your individual customers, personalized recommendations for your customers, and then you can make your store, the design looks more appealing, make it more easy to use, uh to actually to actually help your customers. So that is where branding and experience really help in the digital space, especially where when you can do so much on your own online store.
Got it, got it. So what I like about what you mentioned is that with a platform, an e-commerce platform like Lazada, Shopee, those kind of platforms, right? When people go to those platforms, what they do is they look for product and they click on sort by price. And then they see the lowest one, they go for the lowest one, the one with the most reviews. Whether the reviews are fake or not, they go for that one, they buy it, right? And when you position yourself on a platform like that, you really don't have any competitive advantage, no differentiating factor,
Yes.
then price, because that's price is what people see there. But on our website, you have a chance to basically position yourself differently, right? And the added beauty of that is you also are able to collect your own first-party data, because when people subscribe to you on your site, when people buy from you from your site, you collect their information and you can market back to them with newer products or newer things that you come up with in the future. So I think having a site and building the experience matters a lot. And as you mentioned, Liro, it also shows out the brand, like what you believe in, what's your story, who's the founder. All that can be presented on a website much better than an e-commerce store. So I think the takeaway here is if you run an e-commerce website, you shouldn't base your e-commerce website like the concepts of a platform, right? You should actually
Yes.
put a lot onto your site and see how you can improve the experience for your users. All right. So before we go, anything else you want to add, Liro?
Anything else? I nothing much for me. It's just that I really like my purpose today is really just sharing digital experience optimizations, and I hope more and more business in Malaysia, they can give experimentation a try. Like I've heard a lot saying experimentation is just so time consuming, and then it's not something that they really want to do for their company. But I hope with my sharing today, it gives them some other angles and perspective to consider doing using experimentation as a foundation to optimize their online store. So that is just, I think that's just my goal today for this.
Thank you, Liro,
Right.
and also to your team at Maida. So I think what the Maida team wishes every e-commerce businesses in Malaysia would do is to do experimentation, right? And use that as a way to improve your conversions and also sales. So rather than taking one huge big campaign, you break that down into small mini experimentations and improve and constantly improve and do more of that. So do more experimentations. Now, just to let you know, for those of you who are watching until right now, we are running a workshop called the Digital Experience Optimization Workshop together with Maida. And in this workshop, it's like a course/workshop. It will be a 1-day physical full day, followed by a 14 days implementation program. So the way it works is that in this workshop, you actually put things down into action. right? So Lero will be basically going through step by step of those strategies and things that you can really optimize on your site, how to do it, and how some of our clients and brands have actually done it for real and do it together with you. So that's the video of the workshop. I'm going to place the link down somewhere around this video. In case you missed it, it's dailycmo.net/DXO, or eventually will be also indexed by Google. So just go and search DXO, Daily CMO. I'm sure you'll find it soon. I think it's already up. So anyway, you can find it there. We'll put it down somewhere in these comments. And if there are any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments in this video. We'll come back to that and we'll see it. So thank you again, Nero, and till next time, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, so how do you feel? I just end the stream on YouTube.